Mrs. Green Apple with the song Die Die. Yes, we are continuing our track by track listen through to Antenna. And do you know what? Norn was a really interesting one. I hope you enjoyed the reaction on that because that took us in some interesting directions. But this whole album so far, it's been really cool. We had Norn, which was got like Swedish folk music, Loneliness that had this kind of really high impactful sound to it. We had Unloveless that was much more sort of synth and a bit more bouncy. Sarangi, which is obviously a very sort of meditative kind of song, grand. And you can go back through this. There's been a really, really interesting flow of songs on this album. Definitely to me feels like, with all albums there's songs that you prefer and songs that maybe don't hit you as much, but I definitely feel like this album's been taking us on a very interesting ride so far, which is the main thing I kind of really want from any album. You can enjoy an artist, and when it comes to an album, you want the general quality to be high, which I'm glad to say with Mrs. Green Apple it always seems to be, but also you want it to be a high general quality, not just because the band keeps on doing something they're good at, but because the band makes experiments and takes chances that are interesting. And for me, Mrs. Green Apple, especially on this album, first album as a 3-piece, as I found out at the beginning of doing this, they seem to have taken this very interesting direction of doing these experiments that seem to be just on the border, taking them to interesting places, but never really doing anything that completely falls apart, with possible exception to Blizzard, which I don't know, it's all right, but that's definitely the bottom of the barrels for me so far on this album. It's just ironic it comes right before Que Sera Sera, which is just such an epic song. And between I'm Invincible and Que Sera Sera, so it gets lifted up by its companion tracks. It's not a bad song, but it's definitely not as anywhere near as special as anything else I've heard so far. But I swear I'm not going to spend this entire track by track just taking shots at Blizzard. No, it's time for Die Die. Die Die not being a song about the member of Pale Dusk. I don't know that for a fact. Maybe it is a song about the member of Pale Dusk. If this is produced by Die Die from Pale Dusk, then we'll soon know when we start pressing play and it all goes glitch. But I'm assuming this is about something else. Just die as in like the Oki kanji. I don't know. I have no idea what this song's about, but I'm just, more than anything, I'm just intrigued to see what we get sonically from this, what writing, what interesting forms of expression we get to hear from the music here. Let's enjoy this together. This is me. It's not that. This is Mrs. Green Apple with Die Die. Let's go. I had that turned up loud. Very big sound, mid-tempo kind of thump.
学んだ日々を思い出すでしょう幼き日に見た夕焼け空を懐かしいねと
Oh, the production on this is crisp already. That stereo muted guitar is beautiful.
もう負がかかるいつだって僕らはあの日のままだいつだって僕らはあの日のままだ帰りたい
That was a cool little bit there. Yeah, this is a very production heavy song.
あの道は新しくなる帰りたくなる戻りたくなる過ごした日々はどこにある
This feels like this is supposed to be a big anthemic single. I'm surprised this doesn't have a video. This already feels very much like that.
学ぶ意味を今はわからないでしょう遠い未来夢見る大人の背中待ちきれないねと語り合えば心に愛がわかる明かりが出
Again, those little details, those little nuances. That's kind of what makes Mrs. Green Apple Mrs. Green Apple for me. That is a very simple, catchy chorus. I really like that. Ah, the piano is so perfect in there. Oh, just the way it's landing off beat. I love how he signposts those little changes. You can just fill it all up and then it's like a head-banging ballad. That's great. I feel like this song is just like a big, thick wall of sound. And that's exactly kind of... Oh. Speeding up the chord changes there was a great way to wrap that up. That is like such an easy to follow song, and yet at the same time, do you know what? Sorry, I did. If you've ever done a recording session, there's always all these little sounds that you have at the beginning and the end of the recording that are just left in there because you always press record. You never stop exactly when the song's finished. You always leave a little bit of time after and a little bit of time before just to make sure you don't miss anything. And so if you're ever editing a song, there's always those like the little sounds of like the drummer. That's the sound of the drummer putting their sticks down on the snare, and you just as they put them down. You always get those little sounds. So yeah, for me, I personally, I felt that this was very much formula wise. This is, I mean, I said this about the last song, so I don't want this to come across like I'm kind of damning with faint praise, but there is a simplicity to Mrs. Green Apple's songs that is not a negative. It's simple in the places that make the songs accessible whilst having nuances and not complications, but details in other places. So they've got the kind of the type of complexity in a way that doesn't stop their songs being accessible. So when I say that this song has a very simple writing style, that is in no way a negative. I mean, what I'm talking about here is that everything changes one chord, one chord, one chord, one chord. Very simple melody, but what you're hearing here is that everything. It's the way that it flows. You know, it's not doing anything quick, but just the way that the song flows from start to end. The song's over 4 minutes, right? Yeah, 4.25 minutes. It flows through so many chord changes that no individual chord change in this is like that's a really artistic choice of jazzy chord. Nothing like that occurs. But what you get here is a song that just sort of goes through such a beautiful progression. It really develops gorgeously. And throughout, you have this big, thick kind of tube of toothpaste sound, which is just coming out, just a constant big thick sound just coming out in one big stream throughout. That's such a weird metaphor, but I really love how this song is managing to keep that energy, that kind of glorious thick sound throughout there. We do have some bits where it breaks down in the verse, don't get me wrong, but even then it sounds very thick. You know, this is a song that sounds very thick, very heavily layered. The production is really on point here. I mean, right down to that bit where just before the chorus, or I think it was just before the chorus, you get the bit where everything stops and you just get that kind of guitar sound. Like that sort of bowed guitar sound in there. That's just like such a nice, just having that suddenly come in and come out. It's just a really nice little break there. This is a song in which it's funny because what I kind of wanted to say and why I said I'm surprised this doesn't have a music video is because a lot of the songs that we think of as being the Mrs. Green Apple album tracks tend to be the ones where they go in they'll maybe do something a little bit unusual, a bit different. This definitely in a lot of ways does follow a lot of the beats that I would normally associate with a single. it feels like a big anthemic single that people sing along to. Maybe it's just not, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just not considered the most, quite as relatable as the other songs. Maybe it's not quite got the same level of drama, or maybe there's just something that they considered this not to be like the peak. This album already has some pretty epic singles, so maybe there's just some reason they didn't decide this was the go-to one. But it does feel a lot like you could release this as a single and it would be like a big anthemic one that people would definitely be wanting to sing this in karaoke and places like that. And imagine putting this at the end of like a TV drama or something. It'd be like, wow, that would be like a really great anthemic like closing theme or something. I'll be honest, it's Mrs. Green Apple. I don't think any TV drama can afford this. Nah. But yeah, joking aside, this is just, to me, this is like big anthemic kind of, rather than going in any out there interesting directions of variation, this is instead just like a solid example of how to do a big anthemic dramatic song, because the arrangement stays thick throughout, everything's punchy. The nuances I mentioned are little things like, I loved that little bit where the offbeat piano came in, and it didn't break up the fact that the arrangement still sounded thick even in that part, but the offbeat piano just gave just threw a little bit of a rhythm shift in there just by appearing between the beats. I mean, for example, like, this is like a fairly straight shooting Mrs. Green Apple song when you listen to the bass, and the bass is pretty much aligned with the chords throughout. The bass is just kind of like the solid thing that everything else is playing around. But yeah, arrangement wise, this is more about the thickness of the sound than any huge unexpected turns. I did, one of the things I most liked about this from a writing perspective was that bit right at the end where suddenly the chord changes just sped up for the last bit just in order to wrap it all up. I really liked that. I thought that was a nice little touch because, again, it signposts you're coming to the end, because the chord changes up until that point of mostly being pretty steady in their timing, but then you're coming to the end when it just suddenly starts to speed up and finish. I really like that. I thought that was a nice way of signposting the ending. But again, this is a song which it's very predictable and easy to follow. But I mean that in a wholesome, enjoyable way. But then again, like I say, a way that feels like single. That's how you write a single. So I would be really interested to know if there's been any interviews in which he's mentioned this song and mentioned maybe his feelings towards this, whether this was something they originally wanted to be a single, or whether it was just like one of those songs where it's really good, but you're Mrs. Green Apple, you've got songs that are even more anthemic. even when you do a super anthemic song, you've probably already got songs that are even more anthemic. So yeah, great choice. Really enjoyed this. Definitely not taking Mrs. Green Apple in any different direction that we've already seen them go in. But I would say this is a solid mid-tempo anthemic song that I would certainly say is more than a great addition to the album. What it might lack in taking the album in new directions, it certainly does fulfill in just being a good example of an anthemic mid-tempo sing-along song. So there you go, those are my thoughts. As always, get in the comments, tell me what you think, until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these. For now, ciao.